Thank you for joining us today for another episode of The Silence is Deafening, and I am your host, Minister Adrianne Watson, and I'm here to introduce to you one of my friends, a close partner in ministry, Minister Angel Robinson. Hi, Angel.
Everybody, how y'all doing?
Good. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we're just going to jump right into another topic. And today's topic is about racism in education. And I want you to share with our listeners and our viewers how your experience has been in the field of education and some of the things that you've experienced as an African-American educator.
Okay, well, my background is I started in pre-K classes and I think I was 18 years old. But actually on the district level teaching, I started that 4 years ago. And also before that, I did educational nonprofit, specifically with children who are facing issues with academics, so on and so forth. So my history with kids from pre-K to 8th grade is around, give or take 8 years or so. And so I've seen a lot. I've worked in predominantly or more upper echelon districts, or people would think, they're richer, or so to speak, but they were actually Title I. And
explain what that means.
So Title I basically means that most of the children in their demographics, they're either on free reduced lunch, things of that nature. So there's a certain percentage that you have to have of kids in that demographic to be considered Title I. And so there are Title I schools, or the school was Title I at that time, in pretty prestigious or well-known areas of town. So, wow. And people are shocked to know, I've worked in Dallas ISD, and most people, when you say Dallas, they're like, right. You work where? It's like the Twilight Zone. I'm like, so you worked over there? Yeah, I did. But there's a common misconception that certain sides of town don't deal with racial disparities in education.
So tell us a little bit about that, the racial disparities in education. What would you say are some of the highlights? If you had to name 3 things that just stick out like a sore thumb that are racial disparities or just racism, or even has an undertone of racism in education, what would those 3 things be?
The rules. Rules, yes. There are more Black and brown children sent to detention, sent to in-school suspension. I mean, you can Google. Right. The rules and the way things are set up is a direct perpetuation in some cases of the school to prison pipeline. I know people probably talked about this a lot, but think about it. And I, have gone to several webinars and just tried to really educate myself on cultural sensitivity in the classroom, because it's very, very important to be culturally, culture is different from race. And I think people put those 2 things together, because Black experience, being a girl who grew up in Waco, is different from somebody's Black experience being a Black girl who grew up in Pleasant Grove, Oak Cliff. You know what I'm saying? It's different from city girl to a country girl. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And even state to state. Oh, I'm Ohioan.
Regionally, yes. We talk about our differences all the time. I was like, first of all, I saw snow twice.
Right.
You had this big old winter coat, and I was like, we don't make those down here. Different things. like that. So, inclusiveness, cultural inclusiveness. I'll give you an example. I grew up in predominantly white schools my entire life, from yay high to this high, predominantly white. It was me and 3 other Black people in high school.
Wow.
Ooh, yeah. So there were times where, say for instance, we were in the home ec class. And in junior high, you talk about hygiene. The teacher was saying that you have to wash your hair every day to make sure it stays clean. And my little Black self, I'm like, girl, my hair will fall out. What you talking about? But see, she's culturally aware of the differences between my hair and the rest of the girls' hair in the class. So that's what I'm saying. When I talk about cultural sensitivity, it's treating each child uniquely. Now, and not knocking her, because she was a wonderful teacher, she was just unaware. You know what I'm saying? She was just unaware. And so had she said, however, not making me a sideshow case. So don't ask me, well, what do y'all do with your hair? That's not what you do either.
Right.
You and do your own research. You got a little Black girl in your class. Okay. What are some hair care tips that I could say to educate the other kids about Angel's hair, and then ask her if she'd like to have any additional input? Because what a lot of Black children face is being the spokesperson for the whole race when they're the token Black person. And that happens in school, and in the workplace.
Absolutely.
And so if we teach cultural sensitivity and awareness and inclusiveness on the school level with the teachers, because we know it starts with educators.
It does.
We train the future leaders. They touch a classroom before they ever touch a public office.
Correct.
So we get it right, we'll change the trajectory of our leaders from here on out.
Correct. And you made a good point, because racism is not something that just happens. It is learned. It is taught. And so the first thing you said was the rules, and how the rules are harsher towards minorities, and then literally it's a trajectory towards minorities in the prison systems. But then number 2, you said the cultural sensitivity is lacking there in the schools, and that educators need to do more to not just for Black students, but for Latino students, for
Most
Asian,
definitely,
for Middle Eastern students, to learn these different cultures of the students in their environment, so that they can be more culturally sensitive to those things, and not just focus on just the white students and the viewpoint of their lives, and it totally ignore the rest of them. So what would you say your third point would be when it comes to racism that's overt in the schools, or even undertones?
Definitely. It's accountability.
So explain that.
I feel like, at some point, it doesn't just start with the teachers. It starts with administrators. It starts with the superintendents. It starts with the educational, directors. And I can personally shout out Dallas ISD for the initiatives that they've put in place. Beyond their time. You know what I mean? To ensure that there's representation in the classroom. Right now, Dallas ISD is scouting for Black men specifically, and they are offering free tuition.
Wow.
Alternative certification program to get Black men in our schools.
And why is this so important to have Black men as teachers? Tell us why.
Representation, period. We know that single mothers in this country are mostly us. And the representation, first of all, there's this thing that Black men aren't fathers, which is not true.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's some very great Black male fathers. I'm
Right.
in with one. Thank you, Jesus. But there's also a sense of there are Black boys who've never had a Black male figure in their life.
Right.
Just not just Black, Hispanic boys. You know what I'm saying? Just different races. Representation is important, because if a child sees someone who looks like them doing something that they want to do, or giving them hope that they can do something outside of what they see, it makes light years difference.
Right.
I remember the first time I saw a Black woman with an afro in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I can do that too. Representation matters.
Yes.
Not just with print media and TV. It's in your classrooms. It's in your boardrooms. It's in your churches. Kids need to see people who look like them, sound like them, can understand their slang, their lingo in the classroom. And it needs to be celebrated.
Right.
We need
And
to
not
celebrate cultures.
and not something that is looked down upon or
Exactly.
considered ignorant or dumb because it's different from what you're accustomed to.
Exactly. Just because I say, oh my, that was lit in a lesson doesn't mean I'm any less intelligent. But my babies understood what I was saying.
Right.
Basically, when I taught rhyming in my class, we actually did it through rap songs.
Mm-hmm.
So I taught rhyming. So I would make up rap songs, put them to beats or whatever to get my kids to master rhyming. And they wanted to listen because it was the songs that they were listening to. So I purposefully was like, okay, because that was the culture of my classroom.
Right.
I had some children who were of African descent who were, I believe, I want to say Nigerian. And I specifically asked their mother to give me some words because they still spoke. I would hear the two moms talking, and I said, can y'all teach me so that I can talk to your boys in, certain ways? And, I had one who was kind of reluctant to open up. He was really quiet. But boy, when I started talking to him, and then, we would do the letter videos that were more specific, that were in certain dialects. Oh, he opened up.
Wow.
It came from conversations with me and their parents. I do not know. I'm African American. I've stayed in America my whole life. I'm not totally familiar with, the different ethnic backgrounds as far as Africa is concerned. Tell me where y'all are from. Tell me what you do. Tell me some common words that I could use that would resonate with your boys. I want to learn.
Wow.
And that is the missing piece. It's okay to ask the parents, what do you guys do at home? I spoke a little Spanish. I did whatever I had to do to connect with my kids. And it's relationship.
So what I'm hearing you say is, as the educator, you need to also be the learner and not just the one teaching. And as you begin to learn more about the people in front of you, then you are able to connect. And that makes me think, even not just in the school setting, but even as adults, as we begin to learn more, or as our white brothers and sisters begin to learn more about us and other minorities and other cultures, then they begin to have a bond with us and don't look at us as a threat, or don't see us as different, in the sense that we are different. Every single person is different, and we don't want to not see our colors, or to be colorblind, as the term is. We want you to see our color. We want you to see our differences. But at the same time, it's important to learn what those differences are so that you can have conversations, you can relate, you can understand. And it also shows that you care about that person when you do that. So I think that's amazing, Angel, that you have taken time out as an educator to not just look at things in one way, but to also put yourself in a position to learn more about the other cultures and the other ethnicities that are in your classroom so that you can relate to them and that they can also relate to you. Well, I just want to thank you again for your time today to talk with us about education and racism in the school systems. And I want to thank our listeners again for listening to another episode of The Silence is Deafening. Have a great day.
I